Hey everybody, welcome to a special edition of Tunnel Vision Remote. I'm your host, Ryan Abraham, publisher of USCFootball.com, joined by Keely, Eure, and Shotgun Spratling, and we're going to talk about the USC draft, the NFL draft, where USC landed and all that. We're going to talk about the big decommitment of Korey Foreman, the number one player in the 24/7 sports composite as far as prospects go, and what his prospects mean for USC, potential to nab a five-star recruit after a not-so-great recruiting class last year and a really good one so far for 2021. We got lots of other things to talk about, but I want to welcome in Keely and Shotgun. Keely, how you doing?
Hello. Doing well, Ryan. Excited for another edition of Tunnel Vision.
I'm excited, too. And how about you, Shotgun?
Yeah, I live in the valley, so I'm doing nice and warm.
It's a little warm out there, so we
the temperatures are getting up. So I actually took a drive out to the to PCH. Didn't get out on the beach or anything like some of the crazy people down in Orange County, but took a nice drive, put the top down type of thing, and it was great because it was about 69 degrees out there, and then go about a mile inland, on the drive back, and it was about 15 degrees hotter, and it's 90 something here now. So big difference between 69 and 93. So, but did get out of the house and kind of get to enjoy something a little bit today while still maintaining my social distance.
Yeah, I took a little drive PV yesterday. It was really warm when I left, put the top down and everything, and then it was fogged in everywhere. It was crazy, kind of a crazy thing, but it's nice to get outside a little bit, and not be around people, obviously. But hopefully everyone else is staying safe. We're going to do like about an hour show because we got the Michael Jordan documentary coming up. What's the name of the documentary? I keep forgetting what's the name of it.
The Last Dance.
Last Dance.
Because it was on the Phil Jackson binder.
Right. That was his final his book or whatever he wrote for the final season of that great Bulls run in the 90s. So we're doing it for the next few weeks. We're going to do this at 5 o'clock, and we'll just keep it to an hour. A couple topics, like I said today. 2 players drafted from USC in the NFL draft, and we got to talk about Korey Foreman and that big decommitment. If you want to call into the show, we'll take phone calls. 512-4-TUNNEL is number. We're up on YouTube and Periscope. And are we up on Facebook too, look like?
Yes, we are. We are up on
Sweet.
Facebook.
So if you put any comments, theoretically, we'll be able to put them up on the screen from YouTube or Facebook. I got those here, so I'll look for your comments and stuff and try to insert them in throughout. Oh, we got some coming in through YouTube already. So, all right, that's good. So I think that's working. Hopefully I'm sorry, someone said there's a glitch in the broadcast. Hopefully there's not. Hopefully you guys are doing okay and you guys all sound all right.
Apparently there's a major glitch, they say.
A major glitch? Like what?
Yes.
What's the
It's a mess. Major glitch. Not working. Out of sync.
Oh, interesting. Well, that's good.
Yeah, we look like we're a GIF.
We do?
It's like very sporadic, according to my broadcast version.
Well, major glitch. It's a mess. I see that.
Way to repeat it.
Yeah, I don't know. Internet was good here. Let me see if I can look what Periscope looks like it's working. I'm looking at Periscope right now. But we're like moving all over the place. This is weird.
That's what I'm saying. It's really like glitchy.
Interesting.
How do we sound, though? That's what matters.
Yeah, I can't really tell how we sound.
Okay, give me a second.
Yeah, sorry about that. We'll try to look at the technical stuff right here and see if what we could fix. But it looks like, from my end, it looks like everything is working okay.
We have sound and we have video. They're not in sync, and we're a little glitchy as far as video goes.
All right, here, let me try to put up.
Yeah, who cares? As long as they can still hear us. That's what matters.
It's a podcast.
It's
We've
yeah,
now gone podcast mode.
yeah.
A
Here, I'll
visual
put it-
podcast, you know.
Mhm.
Here, I put up Philip's comment.
It's an artsy podcast.
Yeah, we'll just be a little artsy. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
But like I
Presented
said,
to you by Picasso.
you can call in
Yeah,
Tunnel
right.
Vision 5124 Tunnel. You should be able to talk to us without any kind of glitches. And then also, yeah, like I said, put up your comments. I already put one up. So we'll check out that. We'll look them on Facebook and if any one of you guys can look at Periscope, we'll check those out as well. So sorry, glitchy. Hopefully things kind of get in sync. But it looks fine on the broadcast, like what we're doing here. So I don't know what to tell you. Something weird's going on. Well, anyway, we're going to start with the NFL draft, and we'll start with the number one player off the board for USC, Austin Jackson, the offensive tackle, the only player that left a year early. I think it was you, Shotgun, that wrote, or somebody wrote that he went about as early as anyone had predicted. So that was he was the fifth tackle, I believe, and but went earlier, as early as as he could have went. So going number 18 to the Miami Dolphins. So what do you guys think about Austin Jackson? We'll start with you, Shotgun.
I mean, I think you look at this from a financial standpoint, and I think this was about as good as you can get for Austin Jackson to have come out early. The big question was it worth it to come out now or to try to push his way up and be a top 10 pick next year? And hey, it's going to be difficult to do regardless. You still have guys like Penei Sewell, Walker Little that were going to be on the board next year. Are you going to jump over those guys? I think it ended up being a great move for him to be selected 18th overall. I put the contract figures in the story that I wrote. I think it was $13 million or so that he's going to be guaranteed. So big payday coming his way. To get to $20 million, he needed to jump about 9 spots next year. So he needed to be in the top 9 to get up to $20 million. To get to $30 million, he was going to need to jump up to in the top 5. So I think coming out now and the fact that he jumps in the first round, but not just the first round, mid-first round rather than late, I think financially it turns out to be a great decision by him. He's working on his next contract already. You're working towards that second contract, getting out there a year early. So financially, I think it was a good decision to go to the Dolphins. For them to have a left-handed quarterback, they draft Tua earlier in the draft, and number 5 overall. If Tua ends up winning that position and he ends up playing left tackle, I think that takes some of the pressure off of him. You're not having to protect the blind side for Tua, because you have a left-handed quarterback. Tua is going to be the first left-handed quarterback to throw an NFL pass in like 3 years. So I think that's kind of a fortuitous, step for him as well, that he ends up with Tua at the same time. So I think a lot of things went Austin Jackson's way in this draft. And for him to push his way up into the middle of the first round is huge for him. And now he has an opportunity that he's going to go in. He's going to get some opportunities to play right away. But I don't think there's going to be too much pressure on him that he's going to be some of those teams that are later in the first round are teams that are looking at potentially being NFL Super Bowl teams. And, there becomes that much more pressure, especially in a position like left tackle. I think he gets opportunities to play immediately and not having the pressure. So I think it's a great fit for him, actually.
What are you, Keely?
Yeah, same for Shotgun. I mean, first off, just happy for Austin Jackson. He took a risk and the risk paid off. I did a story about everyone's reaction to Austin Jackson going to the Dolphins, and the overall theme was everyone was just so happy for him and was talking about his character, talking about how great of a guy he is. So I think it's great when you see good guys get some good rewards in that sense. And of course, we all know the story about him donating bone marrow to his sister. But yeah, the Dolphins traded their left tackle last season, so this is an opportunity for Austin Jackson to come in and show his potential. Now, the thing that stood out to me when I was looking at how scouts and people who know the Dolphins better than I would were saying is that Austin Jackson has that potential, but can he be an immediate player? I think a lot of people were saying that the raw talent is there, but he needs to be developed. And that kind of goes back to what we always talked about at USC, is the player development really there? So happy for Austin Jackson, happy that he'll have a shot to be in that starting lineup. But you kind of take the pros and cons with everyone's evaluation of that.
Yeah. Second up, we got to talk about Michael Pittman Jr. And he went fairly early. I think there was 1 or 2 people projecting him into the first round, but not that many. It's funny, I did Roger Lodge's radio show, and he was asking about Michael Pittman, and I just kind of threw out there, I'm like, I kind of feel like he's going to go to the Colts, and he did. He goes like the second.
Good.
Yeah. So was the 34th overall pick, I believe it was, the Indianapolis Colts. So thoughts on the situation for Michael Pittman? Shaka, we'll start with you.
Another, I think, a really good fit for him because you got T.Y. Hilton on the other side is more of a different type of receiver than him, but is going to be the true number one. Michael Pittman could come in and be a big slot. He can be an outside guy as the number 2 receiver. He can be a number 3 receiver, depending on what they do. They ended up later getting Desmond Pittman from Washington State, similar type of guy as Michael Pittman. So those guys might be a little bit interchangeable, can do some different things for the Colts. And you got a guy that lends into Michael Pittman's gameplay. How many times did USC kind of throw the ball up there and let Pittman go make a play? There were times where he would beat defenders and, the ball doesn't get out there far enough on the deep ball and he has to come back and catch a ball over people. Well, guess what? Phillip Rivers is going to throw the ball up to people. Sometimes it's to the other team, and Michael Pittman's going to be great because he's going to go steal some of those away from the other team. He's going to save Phillip Rivers from a couple interceptions, but with his ability to go high point the ball. So I think that, fitting in and getting a Hall of Fame quarterback to start your career, I mean, Pittman already has the NFL legacy with his dad, and, he's learned from him over the years. But I think being able to learn from a Hall of Famer as your first quarterback, I think is awesome for him. And he's going to be able to still do the things he did at USC. He's going to play some special teams for them probably. Going to be all over the field. I think it's a good fit for him. And being in the AFC North, where they're known for their physicality, you got the Colts, you got the Steelers, you got the Ravens. We'll count the Bengals in there because they're in the division. But, those teams are known for physicality, and I think that lends itself right into what he does. So I think it was another good fit for him.
What about you, Keely?
Yeah. Having Phil Rivers as your QB is a nice rookie perk, but it was interesting I was doing, again, the social media reactions, and I was looking at what the Colts fans were saying, and they were very happy to have Michael Pittman kind of boost that wide receiver depth because drops were a problem for Colts wide receivers. And what is Pittman's stat? 254 targets and only 5 drops in his career. So that was something that was specifically where Michael Pittman and Colts match a pro Michael Pittman and a need for the Colts. So in that sense, I think it was a good pick for the Colts.
Yeah. I think we're getting some people are really having problems on the YouTube stuff.
Yeah. I can see the comments
It
rolling.
seems like Facebook is better though, right? I'm looking at Facebook comments. It doesn't seem like it's as big of an issue.
I don't think so.
If it's really bad, you can jump over you can jump over to Periscope, or you can jump over to Facebook. If you go to uscfootball.com, it's on the front page. You can check the different links for that. But
in that sense, I think it was a good pick for the Colts.
But yeah, I don't think we can really stop and start it again. What do you guys think?
You broke
Periscope, I'm not getting any video either. So I've got Austin Jackson on the screen, and that's it. So I'm not sure. I leave the technical stuff to you guys. I just talk.
Yeah. Apparently Facebook is good. It's coming in as good. For me, it looks really slow-mo.
On Facebook?
But they said Facebook people are saying it's fine, but it's out of sync. So I think Facebook is a little bit more patient than YouTube.
Jeez. I don't know what's going on. It's funny. Everything looks good on this end. We could try to restart things, but Facebook will be gone if we do.
Stuff to you guys. I just talk.
Yeah. Apparently Facebook is good. It's coming.
Yeah, I'm hearing. Did you hear that? Was that a delay, or were you guys playing that?
I played with something. I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm trying to check everything.
So is that, yeah, so I'm getting comments on YouTube. It's a lot better than on Facebook. So maybe just go over to the Facebook page and check that out. Or I guess on Periscope. So Facebook, you go to uscfootball.com, all spelled out, and you can watch the stream there. Sorry about that. So we'll look at the Facebook streams and stuff. So those 2 big names for USC that end up getting drafted, guys, but those are the only 2 names. So very early on day 2, Friday, early on Friday, no more names from USC. We thought maybe a Christian Rector or a John Houston or a Drew Richmond might have got selected. John Houston did sign as an unrestricted free agent with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but that's it, I think, as of now. I haven't heard of anyone else signing any contracts, which is kind of strange. Shotgun, kind of get your thoughts on just only the two guys drafted for USC. And apparently, I think Yahoo did a report the first time since 1967, since the merged draft or whatever, that no USC defender was drafted. So that's not a good record.
Yeah, I think that it's not good for USC. They had, I think it was 5 straight years where they had 4 people be drafted, at least 4 players drafted each year, and they had 3 at least drafted every year since 2002. So this is the first time since that year that they only had 2 guys drafted. Obviously, USC has had someone drafted for ages upon ages. So it was no surprise that there were somebody drafted, but not having a defender, didn't see that until earlier today. But that's a huge stat that USC could kind of boost as well. But all these stats that are usually that USC can kind of run out there and say, look at how good we are all slowly sliding away. Oh, remember how USC used to have the most first-round draft picks? Oh, remember how USC used to have the most draft picks overall? That one's coming. Notre Dame's closing in on that one. There's a big debate about who actually has how many in both of those. But, Ohio State passes USC for most first-round draft picks. The defensive one, I think, is a really telling thing because USC's teams have been really built on defense, and people kind of forget about that. And when you don't have anyone from the team, you kind of wish a little bit like someone like Jay Tufele would have left early just to keep that streak going. But it doesn't happen. So the real thing that was confusing to me is, you look at the peristyle and people are going crazy. Like, how could this be? How could USC only have 2 people? Were you really surprised, though? You look at it and you go, maybe a Christian Rector, Drew Richmond, John Houston, maybe one of those guys gets picked in the 6th or 7th round. Probably better for them to have an opportunity to choose their team as an undrafted free agent than to be picked really late. But no one was really expecting those guys to be drafted. You think, maybe they will. But, yeah, so you thought Jackson was going to be picked. You thought Pittman was going to get picked. And you're like, we'll see if anything happens. But no one's really expecting it. And a lot of people were very upset about the fact that there were only 2 people, which was surprising to me that everyone, it just dawned on them that this was not a good draft class for USC.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you have to look at it deeper in that sense because USC had a small graduating class to begin with. Austin Jackson was the only junior who left early, but then you have to go deeper. Look at the 2015 and 2016 recruiting class. Both of those classes have seen a lot of guys who either have transferred out or are not with the team for some reason or another. So you have a small volume of people going to the draft in general, and then from that grouping, you have guys like John Houston Jr., who thankfully he signed with the Steelers, but didn't see as much potential as scouts wanted to see after his sophomore year. So I think you have to look at it's twofold: development, but also those classes that didn't really pan out, and that player management, if you will. So I think it's like Shotgun said, it shouldn't be that much of a surprise if you're looking at what happened with both of those recruiting classes.
Do you guys think USC had built up a bunch of momentum, obviously with spring football being canceled and all that, this sort of got taken back, but, build up some recruiting momentum, feeling like this was a class that, they were kind of going the right direction with the players, the coaches that they had signed and brought in and hired. And they've been really impressive. We got to talk to all of them, and the recruiting uptick, obviously it's a much stronger group of recruiting coaches and landing a bunch of guys. We're going to talk about Korey Foreman decommitting in a minute. But I haven't seen the peristyle if you haven't gone to uscfootball.com, been on the premium message board, make sure you go check that out. It's great stuff. But it hasn't really been that negative. There's going to be negative people that are just like, oh, Clay Helton's still the head coach. Like they're not going away. But there's a lot more negativity after seeing this draft class go the way it went. Did you kind of expect that? And is that fair, do you think? And could you put that on the feet of Clay Helton?
I feel like some of the people that want to be negative were waiting for an opportunity.
Yeah,
this was their first opportunity. Like I said, I didn't really understand why people were surprised. I think we kind of knew what was going to happen in this draft class going in, and if one of those other guys at the end popped up a little bit higher, you were like, "Oh, good for them." But you weren't. No one was really expecting those guys to get drafted. They were hoping maybe, but not really expecting them to. So. I think it's interesting that there was so much kind of vitriol kind of thrown out there yesterday talking about it, but maybe it was just people that have been wanting to be negative that haven't really had that opportunity this offseason. And maybe that's a positive thing for USC if they've been able to put some positive things out there even in the midst of this quarantine and the coronavirus concerns.
I missed your question, Ryan. I'm sorry. So I can't speak to it. I was trying to figure it out based on what Shotgun was answering with. And I think we're buffering really hard on YouTube right now, just FYI.
Yeah, I think YouTube is probably a lost cause, unfortunately. But hopefully Facebook is I think you posted the link over on Facebook. So what we'll do is if the Facebook video is much better, we will upload, I'll download it when it's done and upload it to YouTube so we have a better copy of the video. So sorry about that. YouTube's usually our go-to as far as these go. We get the most people on it and everything. So apologies. I don't know why this is happening. I think there's a lot of people streaming and doing all these kind of things now, but we'll see. But Keely, just real quick on the positive momentum that was lost like the peristyle became a lot more negative, the last couple of days with the draft stuff. Did you expect that? Is that fair that they can put that on Clay Helton?
I mean, these were, like I said, the 2016 and 15 classes were Clay Helton's classes. So I think to that extent, you can put it on Clay Helton. But I mean, this is a product of the past. So I don't understand. I think you have to, it's different. It's kind of like BC, AD, whereas the draft is a product of your past, whereas the recruiting is where you're going currently. Does that make sense? So
sure.
It's not really something new that's bad, if you will. It's just a product of those seasons where USC didn't perform as well as they should have. This is the product you get, bad draft classes. Now, can you have better recruits? Can you develop players better? Then maybe you will see better draft classes in the future. But I don't think this is a symptom of anything currently going wrong with USC. It's more a reflection of the past.
Yeah, well, those recruiting classes were ranked high, but a lot of guys transferred out. And like John Wilner would tweet out, last two drafts, not just one, so two, Temple had more players drafted than USC. Like that shouldn't happen at any time. And you see like in LSU and Alabama in double digits, Utah get like 7 players drafted. UCLA had more players drafted than USC. Like I don't think it's a great trend. I mean, I feel like it shouldn't be a surprise, like Shotgun was saying, but this is part of, I think this is, a Clay Helton thing where, hey, why did all those guys transfer out? Why weren't they developed? Why didn't you have more players that were going to be drafted in this class? So, yeah, I mean, I think you can still look at the momentum going in the right direction and they made a bunch of changes, but because you didn't make changes in the past, like Keely was saying, well, she was saying, these are problems of the past. You needed to fix a lot of these problems earlier than you did. And now you're seeing these kind of things. I think they have made a lot of good changes and they're going in the right direction, but you shouldn't have 2 players drafted from USC on a team, that won 8 games. You should have more players drafted. So and
USC is doing it right now, getting the players there. But what happens when you get those players at USC? Because look at the names I'm going to run down: 2016 class, Jamel Cook, Trayvon Sidney, Josh Imatorbhebhe, Kerry Angeline, Olawale Batiku. Those are guys who are not at USC anymore, but were ranked high. So if you get those guys here, can you keep them?
Yeah, there's been plenty of guys. I think the development is the biggest issue. They're not developing enough guys, and that's part of the reason why some of those guys are transferring out because they don't see their opportunities, and guys in front of them aren't developing as much as maybe they should be either. But you got, along with some of those names, you got guys like Osa Messina as well, who coming out of high school. Everyone you would expect that's going to be a draft pick. You got 5-star guys that have been busts for different reasons, but they're not living up to their potential. And you look at an Austin Jackson or a Michael Pittman Jr. and you say, okay, well those guys lived up to their expectations. You wouldn't say, wow, they just developed so much while they were at USC. They were grew so much from where we expected them to be. Now, I'm not saying either one of those guys. I think both those guys had great improvements along their career. Michael Pittman in particular. However, they're 5-star guys. You expect them to be improving each year and to be first-round draft picks. That's what 5 stars usually equate to, instead of worrying about are they going to be drafted at all type of guys, which is what we're seeing with some of the other guys on that list. John Houston, was a high 4-star, was a 5-star in some rankings. Those guys didn't. There's very few instances of low-ranking guys that have really just turned the corner and been just dynamic players at USC under Clay Helton. Uchenna Nwosu is the biggest example. He was a 3-star guy coming out of high school. Didn't play much early. Really improved. 2nd-round draft pick. But you got way more guys that are 5-star guys that have not improved, that have either stayed flatline or, that have just not done anything. So I think the development is a big question, and I think that's been a question. And part of the reason why USC's recruiting class was so bad last year is that there's not been consistent development under Clay Helton. And that's going to be continued concern until it's shown otherwise. Now, are different assistant coaches going to produce that? That's the big question. And, you see some of the track records of some of the other guys, and you say, we think that they're going in the right direction, but that's still to be determined.
Yeah. Jasper had a question on YouTube. Would Tyler Vaughns have been a draft pick if he declared early? He says, I don't think he would have been, FYI. And then we had a follow-up. He said, you're nuts. This is from SNSP. You're nuts, Jasper Smith. If Colin Johnson is a draft pick, if he declared early, then Tyler Vaughns would have to be too.
I think it would have been a question mark. I think it would have been, depending on if he gets that invite to the combine, because that ended up being huge this year. Anyone that didn't get the invite to the combine was playing at a much lower level just because they didn't have that extra opportunity to showcase themselves. A couple of guys who, didn't want to work out certain drills while they're at the combine, either they were nicked up or whatever and thought, okay, I'll show it in my pro day. Those guys got dinged, in the draft as well. So I think it's something that's hard to say. If a team really liked Tyler Vaughns, there were so many wide receivers taken in this draft, and it will depend on how well Tyler Vaughns runs, because we saw some guys that were really productive that slid in the draft, and I think Tyler Vaughns could be in a similar case next year. There were some 5th, 6th, 7th round guys that were really productive in college, but because they didn't run better than a 4.7, 4.8, they were, not getting bumped up the draft boards. They still got an opportunity. I think Tyler Vaughns will get an opportunity regardless next year. Where he gets drafted, that's a big question, though, and that'll depend on how well he runs and what he can do this year as kind of the lead feature guy.
We had a Facebook comment, possible of at least 7 or 8 drafted next year. Interesting. I mean, there'll probably be more people drafted next year. This was, like Keely said, a smaller senior class. Do you kind of agree with that there'll be a bunch more people drafted next year?
I mean, definitely. There's only 7 guys that were even draft eligible. This became a whole argument on the P as well about who's draft eligible or not. Like, if you don't insert your name into the draft, then technically you're not draft eligible. That's what we're at. You're not eligible to be drafted. So Jay Tufele couldn't be drafted this year. He could enter his name, and then he would have been, but no, he wouldn't. So there's only 7 guys. The 2 that you expected to be drafted, 3 that were we'll see if they do or don't. And then you had Jacob Daniel and Dominic Davis, who no one expected to be drafted at all.
Wow. And then we just lost everybody. We seem to have a lot of technical issues with here, I'll put this one up. Hi, everybody, with the show. So what we're going to do is, if you're on Facebook, when we stop the broadcast, it's going to stop, unfortunately. So that will be done. Then we'll try to pull up the YouTube and Periscope ones again. And those usually can start back up. So I'm going to stop the stream, and we'll come back in a few minutes. Again, apologies. If you're watching on YouTube and Periscope and it was crappy, we'll be back on those channels. If you are watching on Facebook, it most likely will not come back, unfortunately. So it looks like the main problem was connecting with a remote host with Keely and Shotgun. So I'll reset everything, and we'll try to get that going. So thanks. Sorry. We'll be back. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Tunnel Vision. I'm your host, Ryan Abraham. We had about a half-hour show that I think is going to go up on Facebook that was okay, and it was pretty terrible on YouTube and Periscope. Hopefully now it's okay on YouTube and Periscope. I restarted everything. We connected Keely and Shotgun back again so we can finish up the show on that side. So the first part of the show, we talked about the NFL draft and Michael Pittman and John Houston. I mean, sorry, not John Houston. Michael Pittman and Austin Jackson both getting drafted. John Houston signing as an unrestricted free agent. Kind of what it means, only having 2 guys drafted and all that. We're going to focus on some of the recruiting aspects now. If you have any questions, we'll try to get to those too. You can call in still, 512-4TUNNEL. You can put comments on, most likely, I think the Facebook feed had stopped, so it'll just be on the YouTube feed or on Periscope feed. So are you guys seeing everything okay? Do they seem to are people?
Sounds like we're good on YouTube, I believe.
Are we good on YouTube, people? Are you guys happy now? YouTube's working now. People are saying, "Yay!" All right, that's good stuff.
Sorry, Shotgun's wearing the Dolphins hat. Well done.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, very nice. Okay, so I think we'll probably have to upload a different video from Facebook over to YouTube for the first part of the stuff. This is part 2 of the show, and we're going to talk about the big news that was going on. Korey Foreman, so if you guys have ever seen him, 5-star defensive end, the good friend of Drake Jackson, both went to Corona Centennial High School, #1 player in the country, longtime commit to Clemson, and now he's decommitted. We had an interview with him that went up on USCFootball.com. We had some stuff in the war room, a lot of stuff in the war room about Korey Foreman. But this sort of like with the COVID-19 stuff and everything going on, the fact that he wants to take all of his official visits could be really big news for USC. We talked in the first part of the show, some of that momentum maybe getting knocked down a little bit, people being negative that USC only got 2 players drafted. You can get a guy like Korey Foreman to commit. I think you can get that momentum back. So I don't get your thoughts on the whole situation. First, Shotgun, then we'll get Keely.
Yeah, I think that the fact that he is opening up his recruitment is huge for USC because, obviously a top guy, the #1 player in the composite rankings, #2 in our 24/7 sports rankings. He is a difference maker. And guys that usually come in and make immediate impacts in that top 5 to 10 of the rankings are usually edge rushers. Edge rushers are almost always guys that can come in and make immediate impact. So to get a guy that can come in and do that would be huge for USC. You'd be able to pair him side by side with, or across the way from Drake Jackson again, like they did at Corona Centennial in the past. I think that would be huge for USC. The fact that he's decommitted makes that much more of a viable possibility. This is the first decommitment that Clemson's had in I think 3 or 4 years. They've been pretty consistent and pretty insistent on their players that once you commit, you're not allowed to take any visits, you're not allowed to do anything else. That's something that Korey Foreman, really wanted to do. So that's part of the reason why he decommitted. USC is one of the schools that will be getting one of those visits. It doesn't mean that it's automatic that he's coming to USC, even though a lot of people think that USC is probably the front runner because of that. And you can read a lot of the different reasons why in the war room and in some other things. But I think it's a good opportunity for USC to go and strike and get one of the top players in Southern California. And not only that, but the top players in the country. And that's what they missed out on the last the last recruiting class. Not only did you miss out on, these 5-star guys, they were in your backyard. So you had 3 5-star quarterbacks that you all missed out on. You missed out on Justin Flo, one of the best linebackers that we've seen. So, that's the type of player. Korey Foreman's in that same echelon. So if you can bring him in, that it turns things around, turns the tide around a lot, and the perception of USC as well. Because obviously, when you miss out on all those guys the last year, that everyone thinks, wow, USC's really down. Now's a chance to boost back up.
Yeah.
You got Shotgun going matrixy there. What do you got, Keely?
I think I said this either last week or the week before. This is what happens when you have a recruiting staff that is putting in the hard work, laying that foundation down so that this USC becomes a place where recruits want to go. You have a Korey Foreman want to go to a place like USC when it's attractive. Now, I said last time, you have to win. You have to show that you can get the results on the field, but you don't get a Korey Foreman unless you're having the #2 class in the nation, or is it #2? They dropped down to #6 now. Sorry, but at least #1 in the Pac-12, I believe, or #2. Sorry, I'm getting all my rankings wrong right now. I'm sorry.
USC is #6. They were up to #5. They are the #1 class in the Pac-12.
Yeah.
Thank you. There's so much between the draft and everything. My mind is all scrambled with rankings. But yeah, this is what happens when you have a staff that is recruiting hard. What Korey Foreman talked about, he hasn't met Vic So'oto, USC's defensive line coach, but he feels like he has a good connection with him because he's just been recruiting him that hard. And so you have guys that are making the effort and making effort as a collective staff. I don't want to put any VIP information out there. So go to the USCfootball.com, read the war room, read the peristyle. But good stuff by USC's coaching staff. It sounds like.
Oh, Shotgun's back. Nice. That's a new one. We got a question from Jasper. Is Korey Foreman as good or better than Drake Jackson?
Keely, I'll let you give your assessment first.
I just cut out, so all I heard was first.
Is Korey Foreman as good or better than Drake Jackson?
See, I haven't seen Korey Foreman play in person, so I don't like saying my evaluation if I haven't seen a kid play in person yet. So, shotgun, back to you.
I think the easiest way to look at this is that Korey Foreman won MVP of the opening as a junior among the offensive defensive linemen. He was the top defensive lineman as a junior. That's pretty special. Defensive linemen, there's usually some really good guys in each class. And the fact that he was the number one guy, whereas Drake Jackson was not even a 5-star guy. Yeah. And Drake Jackson's really, really good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to take anything away from him. But I think Korey Foreman is a guy that's a little bit bigger, maybe a little bit more explosive. There's a lot of little bits to him compared to Drake Jackson. Now, they play a little bit. They can play different positions, and so you can use them at the same time. But Korey Foreman, he's just a huge kid, and he has the same explosiveness that you see from Drake Jackson. And I think that's the biggest difference is that he's just, that size that he possesses already as a junior in high school.
Yeah, I think go ahead, Keely.
Sorry, I lied. I did see Korey Foreman at the Under Armour camp, but he didn't do any actual drills. He just did like cones and whatnot. But for a guy his size, like you can look around at camps like that and you're like, okay, that's a dude. That's a dude. He was a dude, but he had such a quickness for a guy who's kind of bigger. So I did see him do some cones, but I didn't see him actually do one-on-one. So there you go. Foreman
is like as big as Drake Jackson kind of is now. And Drake Jackson came in and added like 20 pounds when he got to USC. So they were different prospects as far as now you could argue the emergence of Drake Jackson got more attention on Korey Foreman, but they're very close. I think Foreman's the better player in high school. I don't know who's going to end up being the better college player. We just haven't, I think Drake Jackson just scratched, the surface as far as his potential goes. But Foreman's more developed in high schoul, and they're different kind of guys. But he's he's an absolute stud. So there's a reason he's the number one player in the country, for a reason, and that's what you're seeing. But I got to see him a few times in person. Just really, really been impressive. That I think it was the opening when he came in as a junior, one of the only juniors, and just he was dominant out there. So as a junior playing against guys a year older than him, so he's very well advanced as far as a high school player goes, and then see when he goes to college if he can obviously take it to the next level. Drake Jackson has. We'll see if Korey Foreman does, but Foreman in high school I think is better than Jackson was in high school. Yeah. And any other I think USC. Look at USC's recruiting class, like you said, number 5 or number 6, but like the number 2 program was like North Carolina right now. There was another weird program that was ranked ahead of USC. It's early, Yeah.
Minnesota just passed USC.
Minnesota passed USC. Like that's not going to end that way. I mean, North Carolina's probably they're doing well, but I don't think they're going to end up as like the number 2 class in the country when all is said and done. But I feel like this is something where USC needed to get back off the mat because it was an awful, like the worst we've ever seen recruiting class last year. You couldn't be worse than that. Getting these 4-star guys and stuff to commit, that's like good. You're getting close to USC level. Oops, we lost the microphone. This is a weird day. I don't know what's going on. Hit the microphone, it just falls over. You're getting close to where you were, but if you want to get those top 10, top 5 classes, USC always has the 1 or 2 or 3 5-star guys in it. And it's not just getting that group of 4 stars that you didn't have last year. You got to get a couple of like the elite, the one everyone wanted, and Korey Foreman obviously be one of those. So I think you can go from, hey, they're recruiting much harder now. They're going to recruit at a much higher level. But will you get to USC level? That means you get a couple of those 5-star guys, and I think it starts with Foreman.
Yep.
Yeah, Ryan, wasn't it that last year was the first class that they didn't have a 5-star guy?
Yeah, I think so.
USC is always getting at least one true blue chipper out there, and that's what will boost this class. Just like you said, the fact that they've gotten 4-star guys is so much better than what they were doing last year. Again, the excuses that were made are just that, excuses. They're not legitimate reasons why the class was ranked so low. You still could have, if you want to take offensive linemen, you want to build up. Hey, there was guys like Miles Morale, who was a 4-star guy. There were 4- and 5-star guys that were available, but they didn't get any of those guys. So the fact that they were able to get the 4 stars, that shows you that the recruiting is turning around. Now, can it get back to being upper echelon and hold on to that, ranking in the top 10? That's when you got to add some of those top 5, those 5-star guys, those top, 50 guys in the class versus, the top 300 guys. Yeah. Because last year they didn't have a guy inside the top 3. They had one guy inside the top 450, I want to say it was, 350 or 450. Gary Bryant Jr. was the only one, and then Jonah Monheim was the next guy at either 350 something or 450 something. So all their guys in this class are, all except for one or two are inside that top 350. So that tells you that they're turning things around now. Can you push it up and become, can you battle for, actual rankings? That's going to be determined on getting some of those high-end, big-name guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think, Keely? Any thoughts on, what is a class that kind of goes the way we've seen, and you get the Anthony Beavers of the world, a bunch of those, versus a class that you add a Korey Foreman and potentially another, one or two 5-star guys?
I'm sorry. Every time you try and ask me a question, it somehow cuts out. So I didn't hear what you said.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll just move on. I don't know what's going on.
It was like, and Keely, and then just silence.
Oh, that's weird. So it must be the issues are having the connections with these remote things with you guys for some reason. So we would be in studio all together, and at least we could hear each other for the stupid coronavirus. So hopefully we can kind of get back to where we were. But I don't know if is there any questions on? Let's see. We got one from Jasper. I'll pull up here, but check for any questions on Periscope or anything if you see there.
Okay, we'll do.
Jasper wants to know, not to reveal any premium content, but will USC get a couple of national top 10 recruits from out of state? What do you think, Shotgun?
I mean, they're in the mix for some guys. Now, will they close on them? That's hard to say. That will depend on a lot of factors. One of those being how they do this season, if there is a season, because it makes it a lot easier for an out-of-state player to go to a school when they're in the mix for some kind of championship. When you're not, why would any kid from Florida or kid from Maryland or Louisiana decide, I really want to go across the country to play for a mediocre team? That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen unless there's some, the big backstory where dad played there, dad's a coach there, or something like that. It just doesn't happen. Kids that are those high-end players, if they leave the state, now sometimes there are local kids that want to stay home and they'll play for teams that are not great. You have mediocre teams get some really good players. However, if you're coming across the country, that isn't happening unless the team is producing really well. How many times did Clemson bring a kid from California before they were in the mix for national championships? The last guy before Joseph Nada a year and a half ago was in like 1991, was the last kid that committed to Clemson and signed with Clemson from across the country. It doesn't happen. It doesn't make sense for a team to recruit out of state, across the country, because it's just a waste of money, for one, to try to be making those flights and stuff. So if USC is winning, then yes, they're going to be in the mix for some of those kids, and they're already in the mix for some of them. They're talking well of them, but it'll come down to how they play. You got to win some games too. Winning is not everything. How you do is not everything. But if you want to get that type of player that Jasper's talking about, you have to win some games.
Yeah, and everything's up in the air right now because you don't know if there's even going to be games. Keely, I don't want to ask you a long question, but any thoughts on all that? And then in building, maybe thoughts on momentum of this recruiting if there aren't games. Can that's something that they can keep up?
I think I got a good part of that. I'm going to answer Jasper Smith's question because I know what that is. Basically what Shotgun said. You can't get top out-of-state recruits unless you're putting the results on the field, because why else would you come here? It's exactly what Shotgun said. You get the Leonard Williams if you're putting top guys in the NFL, if you're getting those Pac-12 championships. So that's not going to happen. And especially, I heard coronavirus, so I'm going to tie this in your question. But especially with what a post-coronavirus world looks like, are you going to have families want kids going out of state in the post-coronavirus world? But also because why would you go if they're not doing well? It just makes sense to stay home, stay at a better school if you're there locally than to go out to USC.
All right. This has been like one of the glitchiest. We've had coronavirus. I think the whole broadcast has coronavirus. So my apologies. I don't know what. It's so weird. Like I've seen the internet not work as well when we've done these during the day because there's more people. I think more people at home, more people online than there normally are. But I checked our internet connection. It was like the best I've seen it for a long time, and then everything else is still glitchy. So it's kind of weird. And also the putting up the questions on the screen have gone around. But I think there was a question on YouTube if one of you guys want to grab it if you're checking it out. I can check it out. Let's see.
Coley's asked a couple questions,
Okay.
our resident Notre Dame fan, about the schedule. What happens? What's the general feel? Do you think about the opening game against Alabama? Is that going to be delayed? Is it going to be dropped? Do you think USC only has a Pac-12 only schedule? If USC has a mandatory reduced schedule and has a 9-game season, would they drop Notre Dame? Or, would it be a lesser Pac-12 team that drop? Who decides? Does USC decide? Is it Pac-12? I think it's just still way too early to try to make those guesses. What's going to happen if there's a second wave? How bad is the second wave? All those questions we don't know. So, I've said this and kind of made this speech a little before, but don't pay attention to what your politicians say, whether they're on either side, whether it's on, whether it's coming from, the federal level or whether it's coming from the state level. They're going to have some input in that things in the decision making. However, it's going to come down to the science and, what the scientists say, because there's going to be a big liability factor. If you try to bring games back and then suddenly someone gets sick, especially at the college level, because, the NFL may be able to do it because they're paying the players. They're paying them to be at the stadium. They're doing that. If you bring college students back and then, one of them gets sick and they're, God forbid, it's a serious illness, you're going to be sued for that. And who's going to be sued? The school, the coach, the conference, the NCAA. Everyone's going to be sued from that. And no one wants that. And that's one of the biggest issues that's going to be standing in the way of college football coming back is there's going to need to be some more steps that have taken place. And until we see those, and when are those going to happen, it's hard to say. We don't know. And, anyone that says that yes, it's going to happen, we're planning on it happen, is wishful thinking. Anyone that says, well, it's not going to happen, they're going to have to push it back to the spring, I think is just being a little bit negative too, because we just don't know yet right now. And I think it's just it's improper to say one way or the other right now, just because there's so many factors that have been undecided so far.
Thoughts, Keely? I don't know if you could hear.
I heard parts of it. I will say, though, I have a lot of USC fans in my life, and a lot of them come to me and ask, and they're like, what if we just have a college football season, but we start after the Alabama game? So just get that out of the way. So I don't think it works like that, but that's what some of the USC fans in my life have been asking me.
Yeah, I agree with what you guys are saying. You just don't know at this point. I mean, I think logistically, because the college schedule is so strange, there's a few things you could obviously do. I mean, we've heard the people say you could delay it. So take the whole college football season as a chunk and move it. And then you're not going to have you can't get rid of the bye weeks because it screws everything up. So you would have to basically pick up the college football schedule. Instead of starting in late August, early September, you move it and start it whenever. If it's going to be January or December or whatever you're going to do, you can move it. And maybe even say, here's the first 4 weeks and we're going to take a week. I don't know. You could break it up, but you kind of have to move it as a whole piece. Or the only other option I see, you can't get rid of the non-conference games and keep the rest of the schedule because they're all intermixed. You just don't know. USC plays Notre Dame at a weird time. Stanford does. I think it would be very difficult to do. You'd almost have to say, hand it off to the conferences and you put Notre Dame somewhere in a conference and just you guys go figure it out. Who wins the Pac-12? Have an 8-game schedule, whatever it is. But you would have to basically throw away the entire schedule. And if you're going to get rid of, you can't miss Alabama, just say lose week 1. I think there's some conference games in week 1. You can't lose those. So, I think you'd have to move the whole thing or say each conference figure out your champion. You get to play 8 games, make a new schedule, and just do that. So I think those are a couple of the options. But, yeah, we just don't know. I don't think you could take the first 2 weeks out, and I just, because if you have a conference game, that screws things up too. So the college football schedule is very complicated. It's not like the NFL where you can kind of rework things. College football, you'd have to split it up to me by conference if you're going to break it up.
I think that one of the options if you had to have a shortened season is you eliminate non-conference games, but then it just goes to the conference and they say, okay, you got to reschedule the entire season. Yeah. So you're going to say, hey, we're going to do this in 9 weeks. You play 8 games. Everybody's going to play that many. You guys have to come up with a new schedule. It's not going to be, hey, we're going to try to work around what schedule you already have. No, you'll have to scrap the schedule that you previously had and just create a new one. Just so because of all the things that you just said, There's the possibility of them moving it to the spring. I think that's a possibility because I think they're going to do everything they can to have college football in some form, fashion, whether it has to be two-hand touch or virtual or something. I don't know what they're going to do. They will try everything they can because there is so much money on the line, and that money is so important to all the other programs in the athletic department for every school. Football is one of the few programs that makes money, and it helps feed a lot of the other ones. Now, some programs don't make money, and it comes with donations and all the other things, but the money factor of it is going to lead that the college football the colleges will try to do everything in their power to have a college football season in some form or fashion.
Yeah, this is why I think a couple of shows ago I suggested I feel like in order for college sports to go on when they do come back, it would be order of financial importance, which would be college football. And like Ryan said, like there's no football czar. And I think I saw a tweet this week where I think some SEC AD who kind of went on background was saying like, yeah, I'm already sensing that the conferences have different opinions of when they want to come back. So I feel like for organization's sake, you put it to each conference to figure out your conference champion, and then we'll go from there. Because otherwise, I don't see how you can get all those conferences on board when they're in different states with different regulations and whatnot. It seems like a headache.
It does. And but I think the one thing is important, and you hear like Larry Scott and some of the other conference commissioners talk. There's no talk about like, well, you could start football but not other sports. Like basically, if you're going to start, if college is going to be happening, football is going to be happening, other sports will be happening. It's safe, if it's safe enough for football, it'd be safe enough for women's volleyball or whatever. So I think that's there. Jasper made a comment that if the season doesn't start by October, I think it's going to be canceled. I would definitely disagree with you on that, Jasper. The most important thing is they want to get a college football season in. If they have to start it, in April, they could start a year from now and then basically have 2 back-to-back seasons. It's so important they would do it. And I think Pete Thamel wrote an interesting piece where he was saying he thinks that you should make a decision right now. This is for Yahoo. He wrote this because what you could do is reschedule everything, move the schedule out to January, but all the logistics with the television contracts and things, you could rework all that now. So then it's set. And then you're like, hey, we're starting in January. Here's where it goes. So I think there's some sense to that. Shotgun doesn't look like he likes that. So what do you think, Shotgun?
I think that there's too many unknowns. Like if you knew that, okay, this would be ready by then, a vaccine, or, that things are going to be this much better by then, there's just way too many unknowns. And that's why I think it's premature for anyone to say, yes, the season is going to happen, or no, the season is going to have to be, is not going to happen in the fall. It's going to have to be moved. If you want to prepare for that and, things work out better than expected and suddenly in the fall things are open, do you then move the season back? I think it's really premature to make a judgment on that. Now, that has happened repeatedly so far during the coronavirus concerns. It took, a couple of days for the NCAA tournament to get announced that it was going to close. But then the day later or the same day, the College World Series, which is in July, was said, okay, we're banging that too. That's done. So they've made some of these type of decisions already. But again, I think it's too early to go ahead and throw it out there just because if there's so many unknowns with this being a novel virus, because there's no, preordained, this is the set pattern that these type things go on. You just don't know. And it's unfortunate that that's the case. And, wishing and hoping that, the doctors and the scientists that are working on this come up with, more and more developments in it. And you see things like the Louisville study from this year, from earlier. You see the USC study that, hey, maybe it was already here and more popular than we thought initially. So, how do those lend towards getting closer and closer to the herd immunity and towards other things? Still a lot of things to be discovered. And I think it's all in the scientists and the doctors that are working on this, much rather than a college football, an athletic director to come up with a decision on it.
Thylacine says, let's just play Notre Dame 8 times. Like, If their whole goal is you want to get Clay Helton fired, that might be, you would play Notre Dame 8 times. I don't know if Notre Dame would want to do that. I don't think USC would want to do that, but that's an interesting suggestion.
If it's college football, I'll take it.
Yeah.
And hey, maybe you see something very, very unique. If you look back in time at, the early college football schedules when, USC is playing Occidental and different things, and USC is playing the same team multiple times in a season, because it wasn't about, we'll find a conference champion and we got to do this for the TV. It was, hey, we want to play some football. And it was more like an intramural thing. And, to an extent that you want to, hey, we just want to get out there and play. And so maybe you see some creativity come about and where you have a more regional schedule, and USC is suddenly playing San Diego State as a conference game. You're playing the Southern California Conference, and you change things up for a year. Who knows? But again, all that stuff is very premature for me until we get, further developments, and, we're working towards it. And then hopefully, good luck to our scientists. We're really hoping and praying that they're able to come up with something, because obviously we want some college football.
We do. It's top of the hour, so we're probably going to end this. But George and I got the questions working again, so there's something that was working. That's good. George said, the time of Zoom-only recruiting, have you heard of any players committing without visiting a campus or even without coaches meeting with them in person? It happens with executives.
Brendan Campbell, yeah. I always want to say Brendan Crawford because the former UCLA and San Francisco Giants shortstop. But yeah, Brendan Campbell has not visited USC yet. Quadarius Davis, I think it is, the wide receiver that USC is recruiting from Texas, they're in the mix for. If he were to commit, he would not have been to USC yet. So yes, it has been happening a little bit.
Yeah, I talked to Miller Moss on one of these live, and he had visited his top four: Alabama, USC, and UCLA, but not LSU. And he really didn't want to make a commitment until he had an opportunity to do that. But obviously, if those visits get completely shut down, if he really liked LSU and, he could do it, and they have a resume from last year, obviously, with what they were able to do. But yeah, I think that's something, George, that you can see, but that's a weird one when you have an out-of-state player committing. Mostly it could be some local stuff that maybe you haven't been there or had an official visit or something. But that's an interesting one when you have a kid from Texas committing without actually having been there before. All right, well, everyone was going to watch Michael Jordan. That comes on again. ESPN plays it again, so they'll play it at 6 p.m. here on the Pacific time. They'll play it again at 9 and 10, so you could watch it if you missed the early part. But we wanted to do these early.
But you can't have the experience of watching a sporting event along with everyone else on
true.
Twitter or social media.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing, I said last week before we started the show, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to watch it. I don't really care that much. But then I was like, well, this is the first time I get to watch something along with all my Twitter people and all my Twitter fans and friends and stuff. So that was like, okay, I got to get on and be a part of this as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, are you kidding me, Shotgun? You were like, man. And then you're just sending out tweet after tweet. And I was like, come on.
It was good. I
got into it.
I don't know if I'm going to watch it live tonight. I might have to be working on trying to fix this broadcast, but we'll sorry again for everybody for the glitchy stuff that happened, but hopefully there was some good content there. We'll try to put up the good versions of the video up on uscfootball.com and the different platforms. But yeah, so I don't know what's going on, but coronavirus, I guess we're blaming it on the coronavirus. I'm looking forward to the day when you guys are back in the studio, and that at least takes one of the, because there's a lot of technical aspects that go into this broadcasting it live.
I want to produce again.
Yeah, and she gets to produce, and so I don't mind doing it, but it's difficult when you have people that are remotely and you have to connect them up and make it all sync and everything. So there's always glitches. If you're any Zoom meeting you've been on, there's always some weird stuff that happens. So we've been pretty lucky with this one, but today was kind of garbage. But oh well, what can you do? I'm ready for this to be over.
Yep.
I want this to be gone. Let's get back to normal. Maybe we'll see in a few weeks. Hopefully things are getting closer. Little steps towards normal will at least make me start feeling better. All right, that's Shotgun Keely. I'm Ryan. Thanks for tuning in. Go watch The Last Dance. Enjoy. I love hearing from young people that never seen Michael Jordan play, and they're like, "Wow, he was good." Yeah, it's good.
And now you get to, for those young people, they'll get to see how crazy Dennis Rodman was.
Yes, this is going to be good. Well, you've seen that recently though too. He's going to Korea with Kim Jong.
Not the same.
Not the same. All right, Keely, Shotgun. I'm Ryan. Thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you next time.